Tai iger tetutietab Tililindo en Kass TV amu kimnatet naet.
Welcome back to Tililindo program. My name is Chemtai Kirui, and tonight on the program we are talking about Arise Against Cancer story. Before the break, we had the conversation by Nancy giving us her journey through cancer. If you didn't join us from the beginning, you've missed a lot. But the conversation continues. And when Nancy was speaking, we had a lot of resilience and the determination that Nancy was carrying through the diagnosis, and the treatment until this moment when you're sitting here and having a conversation. But we have Tony Kisaka, who is the communication director at Arise Against Cancer, and we've not even looked at where the Arise Against Cancer came from, but that from the sharing that Nancy has shared with us here. How has her story shaped the messaging, even as you're introducing how Arise Against Cancer came about?
All right, thank you very much. Arise Against Cancer was formed out of lived experiences, right? So you find Nancy has talked about her experience as a patient and a survivor. And I found myself in a place where someone that I really, really cared about. I'd always heard about cancer, I've heard about people who've passed on, people who have survived. And I used to know that, it's out there and it's really bad until it hit home, way too close to home. So a certain individual who was very, very close to me, I truly loved him, and at one point he just collapsed. And apparently that was the first time he'd ever needed to be taken to hospital. Unfortunately, when he went to hospital, he passed on like 3 weeks later. And when he was in hospital, I was there every single day because I really cared about him and I really believed that, we can beat this thing. Unfortunately, the hospital he was taken to with treatment for almost more than 2 weeks of treatment, and we were seeing he was just deteriorating. He was getting worse, yet he was being treated. And at some point, because he was a doctor as well, at some point he asked to be transferred, and let's just say I almost moved heaven and earth just to get him out of that hospital to another hospital. And by the time I was able to help get him to the other hospital, 2 days later he passed on. And the crazy part about all this is that when he passed on, the doctors called me first. Then I had to now tell his family that he's left us. And that kind of changed my life because I was helpless. Watching him in hospital, I felt useless, I felt helpless. And it's a place that I never really ever want to be in again. And so I asked myself, what is it I can do about this? And I remember every single day I'll go and visit. I remember my dad came and visited him as well. And I would always talk to my dad and I was saying, you know what, we're doing everything we can. I'm calling all the doctors I know. I'm pushing the hospital. I'm doing A, B, C, D. And he said, you're doing the best you can and that's all you can do. The rest we leave it to God. But at that time, especially when you're seeing someone diminishing, you really, really want to be there for them. You really want to see that turnaround. You really want to see that miracle. Unfortunately, that did not come. However, from that point on, I became an advocate against cancer. And so after that, I found myself, in forums, found myself talking about cancer, found myself supporting people who are in that space. And when we were sharing, I've shared quite a bit with Nancy over the years. And so when she called me on and said, would you want to be part of this? And I said, it's a vehicle, and especially the vision that she had, and it married with what I was looking at. And I said, I want to be part of this. I want to be able to know that at the end of the day, I was able to do something. I do not want to ever feel useless again. And so that's how that lived experience brought us into this particular field where we now had Arise Against Cancer formed. Yes.
And of course, I'm going to go back to Nancy to look at what motivated you to start this, yeah? But just from what you're sharing, Tony, it's more about the heart behind it, Sometimes you have to live it for you to really understand it.
Exactly. If you look at what Arise Against Cancer stands for, we looked at, because there's a lot of cancer NGOs, entities, organizations, a lot of stakeholders. And when we're looking at it, and from her story, what you heard from her story, and when I look at my story, what we got to realize is that, at the end of the day, with everything that we're doing where cancer is concerned, what's happening with the patient? The patient needs to be in the middle of it. And when the patient is in the middle of it, we need to be able to understand from their perspective, the experience they're going through. I can never, at any one point, regardless of what experience I've had, I cannot be able to match the experience she has had. She's lived through it. And we started realizing, because professionally what I do is also related to finding gaps in everything that is happening and being able to figure out how to sort out those gaps. Right? I talk about turning countermeasures into solutions. Countermeasures are, for example, if you have a headache, you'll take Panadol, but Panadol for the headache is not the real problem. The real problem is something else. So countermeasures is taking the Panadol, but finding the root cause and dealing with that's finding the solution. So we were looking and seeing where the gaps are, and we realized when you talk about psychosocial support, the kind of psychosocial support that we are getting is kind of different. Okay. We have doctors, as you said, these doctors have not experienced this as patients. They've experienced it as doctors, the medical fraternity. And when they're coming from that perspective, for them, they look at it as we need to figure out a treatment. But then, besides the fact that they're helping and they're there for us with the medicine aspect, the biggest issue that we have, especially where cancer is concerned, is what's happening mentally. That being able to be encouraged. I remember the time I was in hospital, I was taken to hospital and I was taken by one of my brothers, and I was okay. I was even saying, from here I'll go to the office. But at that point when they started doing tests and, I could see that they were frantic and, the medical team was frantic and they were trying to really stabilize me, I was not concerned about that. But when I looked at my brother's eyes, his face, and I saw his face and I saw his eyes and someone I know, I almost lost hope. I was like, I must be in a really, really bad state. I might be even going. And because of that experience as well, when I come and look at it, especially from cancer patients, and that's what she was saying, deleting contacts, blocking people, it's not from a bad place. It's because I'm already using every ounce of energy I have to be able to fight this, to be able to believe that I can beat it. Now, every aspect, whether it's a family member, a friend, whoever is coming, and they're like, they want to be sympathetic. They want to show me that I'm going through a tough time. This is a big thing. It brings, I don't want to call it negative because it's actually the truth, yes. But then it brings a certain feeling of I'm fighting a losing battle. So I put myself in a place where I said I want to be able to encourage people and tell them, look, this is a fight like any other fight. There are people who have survived it. We've got people in our NGO who have survived it, and they will tell you their experiences. We've got people like us who, being a caregiver, being there and experiencing it, we're there, and we are not going to stigmatize you. We are not going to say, okay, because they're having cancer and maybe it's infectious, maybe it's contagious, maybe they did something wrong. We're not going to do that. We are going to walk through this the best way we can. Okay? We are not useless. Cancer is not something that, once someone gets, we're useless. No. And the Rise Against Cancer comes and says, we are going to arise as a community and fight this beast, and we shall win. Yeah.
Wow. And the other thing, when you're talking and also the look, sometimes we communicate and you don't have to say the word. I'm going to come back to you when we're talking about the communication aspect and what we need to do as caretakers, as people who are dealing with patients around us, because that, like we've just figured out here, it adds up to how the patient feels, right? Mm-hmm. Nancy, you're going through this journey. You're talking about election is just the other day, yeah? Yeah. When do you find time to sit down and be like, wait a minute, I need to start a foundation or a conversation around cancer and bring other people around it? What motivated you to think about a Rise Against Cancer?
Yeah, Chemtai, when you're taking chemotherapy is not a tablet you're given. You're infused. You're lying on that bed for maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, because you get to the hospital and you leave the hospital in the evening and you've gone very early. Yeah, so that time you're just tired. And I remember every single day I was going for chemotherapy, my husband went with me. He never missed even a day. Even today, even now, when I go for any checkups or what, he goes with me. Yeah, like Tony said, your support group. can also accelerate your healing. So I had a very good support team. My family, my friends, people who I didn't even know, my church, you know, they really came through for us. I think that also can make somebody heal faster. And yeah, what motivated me to start Arise Against Cancer, when you're on that bed and you're lying down and you call yourself a meeting and you're like, how did I find myself here? How come I never knew? Then I realized, had I been going for screening early, maybe they would have discovered it very early. Because if you go for screening and this lump is seen when it is very small, it will just be chopped out, pulled out. So you see, you will not need to go through all this treatment that has its own positives and negatives. Yes, we know that the treatment is going to get you out of cancer. However, you also know that there are people who have died when they're on treatment. Yeah, so while I was there, then I decided, how do I get to, because I know even from among my friends also, my family, I know that people just like me who are in a position to go to hospital for screening have never gone. Even now that Nancy had cancer, still they have not been moved. People have not had that push, go for screening. So that is when I decided, how can we communicate this to people? So that's how Arise Against Cancer came up, so that we can create this awareness and inform people why it is very important for them to go for screening, because it will save their lives. People have died even at stage 2, stage 1, and yet they are supposed to have been treated. But you see, people at stage 1 never went to hospital for screening, so it continued to grow. If I had been going for screening, I probably would not have been in this same predicament. So I wouldn't like anybody else to go through what I've gone through. And I remember because of that also, I decided to say, where is the gap? The gap actually is where in the corporate fraternity, where people have medical cover, all this, they're able to go for treatment, but they never go to hospital because of fears that maybe we'll talk about later on. Yeah, so how do we get these people to go for screening and all that? So cancer awareness in the workplace was born within the Arise Against Cancer. Yeah, so the cancer awareness in the workplace, that is where now we call events, maybe coffee meetups and all that, and we try to talk about it and we tell people, look, you can actually go around this. And in case you have somebody who have cancer in our office, how do you navigate around them? So we try to help people to know how to handle these situations. Because when you have cancer, chemotherapy, gives you these swing moods, where at one point you're very happy, at another point it takes you down. So if your colleagues do not understand you, do not understand what you're going through, they may not be in a position to help you. So we try to talk to people to tell them, if you are not able to communicate, can we communicate for you to your management, and just tell them, inform them, because if you don't inform them, they do not know. They may mishandle you, and maybe you'll feel people don't like you, but it's just that they do not know what you're going through. Yeah, so that's what we talk about. And also, we talk about nutrition, because when I started my treatment, I can't, even to date, I can't remember a day when my husband has not walked into the house with all different types of fruits, So we talk about how important it is for you also to rethink your diet. Yeah, and rethinking your diet does not mean that now you start going into those expensive budgets for your diet. No, live your normal life. Eat what is available, but let it be within the forgiving diet. Let me call it forgiving diet, because we have a lot of times when we go out of that diet. Yeah, so it's good to maintain that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tony, Nancy has mentioned a bit of some of the program that is driving awareness at Arise the Cancer, but maybe the mission behind it. How do you communicate when you come to corporate? Like you come to our office, how do you communicate that mission?
The first thing that we do is we actually engage with the HR, because HR is really pretty much the custodians of staff and staff matters. And having worked in HR as well, so I kind of understand the HR structure. And what we realized is that having been there and seeing how in one of the corporates years back, remembering how even the medical related HR staff and what they will do, I got to realize also where gaps were, just the same way she said. And so when we're coming back now, we are beginning to educate, beginning with the HR staff, the HR leadership and the HR staff and entities that allow us into their space to start talking to their staff members, start talking to their leadership, start talking to the people who handle their medical aspects. Why? Because we realize that, as Nancy has said, there are people who have medical covers, extensive medical covers, but they fear to go to the hospital for checkups just because they're saying, if I go there and they find something, that's going to be the start of the problem. Unfortunately, what they don't realize that it's just a problem that is slowly growing, and then by the time that they're forced to go to the hospital, it's too late. Right? Then there's people who will go to the hospital, they will struggle, they'll be maybe whether it's going out of the country or not be at work for months on end, and they beat the thing. And then when they come back, again, they're stigmatized. Why? Because I'm thinking, okay, he was away, she was away for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and the way cancer is bad, and the questions that they're asking, the things that they're saying, and we find a lot of these people, when they're coming back because of what their colleagues are doing and saying, they get into depression, which puts them now into an issue of mental health issues, which is something, again, that we are also working in tandem with. I'm also a mental health advocate as well. So we are looking at it holistically and looking at especially the aspects that most organizations, most individuals, doctors might not have really gone in depth in. So we're asking the questions: how are you integrating your staff back? How are you integrating your family members back into the family? You cannot afford to now start looking at them and saying, okay, you know what, they've just come back, so they're still weak, so don't do that, because you're making that person feel like, okay, I'm a burden to my people. Okay? And so from that direction, we came and said, no, we have got to fight this cancer thing, and we are going to do it in a very different way, so that we allow people to enjoy, even if they're going through pain and struggle and hardship, they're like, it's an illness just like any other illness, and I can beat it. That's why Nancy's talking about, people will always laugh around her. Why? She will joke. She's the one, she's a patient, but the doctors will come laughing. The nurses will laugh. They'll want to come to her bed, even if it's not checking on her, but then just to talk to her. Why? Because she's going to make them laugh. But, and we always say laughter is the best medicine. However, how many of us believe and actually practice the fact that laughter is the best medicine? She's talked about diet and being able to ensure that you're eating. I know with cancer, it gets to a place where even eating is a struggle. But there's a little proverb that says, no matter what you want to do, before you do anything, eat fast. Why? Because food is actually medicine. Food is what our body requires and needs. So we've got to find ways in which we can be able to ensure that we have the appetite. We have to be able to eat. Why? Because in that eating, we're also boosting our immune system.
Yeah. There are a few things you've said there that I wish we had time to follow up, but I think one of the key things that has stood out for me is the issue of avoidance to go for checkup. We say it a lot, ile unaenda kutafuta
Utapata,
right?
yes.
And that brings in the issue of delayed screening.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, when you meet with these corporate individuals and you speak to them and you're talking about these issues, does the issue of ignoring signs, screening, and unatafuta utapata comes up, and what is the message you normally share with them?
Yeah, what I would like to tell people is to try and ignore what they hear. Pick out what is good, leave out what is not working for you. So there are these myths of if you go and you're diagnosed with cancer, it brings fear. There is that one of people who have had cancer die. So people fear to go for checkup because they don't want to know that they are going to die. But I would like to tell people that there is treatment now for cancer. Research is doing very well, and in one of our programs we have where we would like to celebrate also successes of treatment for cancer. Yeah, so you don't necessarily have, not everybody who gets cancer dies. Now we have percentages also going up, showing that there are more people in survivorship, and that's what brings us back to cancer awareness in the workplace, because now we are going to have an environment in the economic setup where we have more survivors, cancer survivors, that means now you're living with a chronic disease. And for me, I don't even look at it as chronic, sorry about myself. Yeah, so you're going to live with it. So, so don't fear death. Death will come. You don't have to die of cancer. There are other people who are dying of other things. So cancer will also be treated and you'll be back. I'm here, I'm back. Yeah, so there is also this myth, mashinani, at cancer, we umerogwa, umenini. So instead of you going to the doctor, you are now going back to, mimi naenda kutafuta mtumishi, you know. Yes, go look for those watumishis, but my friend, go for treatment also. As you're doing your treatment, you can still go for those watumishis, go for those prayers and all that. Don't ignore it. There is also, especially for people who are in employment, there's a fear of, supposing I go and I'm diagnosed with cancer, will I lose my job? No, we are now advocating and saying, the corporate, the employers, please take back people who have been diagnosed with cancer, because this is when they need the jobs more. This will keep them going, to give them energetic, you know. Just try and understand, maybe give them flexi hours, you know, try and reduce their workload. You could change their desk to somewhere else, let them do something else. But they have to continue working because they need this income also for their treatment, for their medical bills and all that. Yeah, so don't fear going for checkup. Screening will save you, and we insist, please go for screening. Screening will save your life. It will catch that. If ever you have the cancer within you, it will catch it when it is still so small, and you will not need to go through all these problems, all the troubles. Yeah. Yeah,
and I think this is the message you're actually trying to push here. I know the audiences who are watching at home, and you've brought it clearly, Watumishi and Kurogo and things like that. People are hiding it, people are not speaking out, and we're talking about support system. So if we don't know there's a patient in that house, people are hiding it, they're making it to be something that is not, you know, and then it becomes hard to try and help. And now we are coming out and talking about it, like there's something that can be done about
something
it.
Can be done about it. Yeah, that is why that is why, like, I came out. I have a few other friends in survivorship who have come out, and we are speaking. You know, people don't say I had cancer. They keep quiet because they shy away from it. And what will somebody think if I tell them I had breast cancer and all that? No, I'm out here. We are out here. If you've been newly diagnosed, I'm here. Talk to me. I talk to people freely. We don't charge and all that. We help people to also go through it. And also, if you are diagnosed, do not, you know, we know that herbals, Africa, we have very good herbals. These herbals will help you, yes, but they will not take away the cancer from your body. Please, even if you will take your herbals, but still go to your oncologist and get the proper treatment so that the cancer is out of your body. You will continue with your herbals after that. Yeah, we have continued with those herbals, but first we have to get that cancer out of your body, because you can, you know, I know Dr. Komen spoke to me very, very clearly and understood, because I was very open about all these things. Trust me, when I was diagnosed, I went to Cambridge. Don't ask me why I went to Cambridge. People have asked me, why were you going, what were you going to do in Cambridge, and how did you know that that's where to go? I went to Cambridge and I told them, I think you are funded to research. And you research, you have a lot. In Cambridge compound, there is a lot of herbs grown there. Most of their trees are herbal trees. So I told them, I want you to give me a herbalist, who you work with and who you trust. And they did. They gave me somebody. Yeah. So you see, when I went to Dr. Komen and I explained to him, he asked me, because Dr. Komen he knows, he has heard from so many of his patients, people go for herbals instead of treatment. And he explained to me and told me, Nancy, herbals are not bad. However, because herbals are trying to secure the good cells in your body, they are going to deny you the healing that you will get from the chemotherapy treatment, because they will be fighting chemotherapy, which is supposed to be killing those cells that are affected with cancer, because you know the herbals will maintain your body as is. They will not want anything to be taken away from your body. So as you're taking those herbals, they're helping you, yes, but they are retaining the cancer cells, which are continuing to grow. So herbals are not bad. However, listen to your oncologist, listen to your doctor.
Actually, what she's talking about, and that's what Arise Against Cancer is also about. Our core mission is being able to empower our communities. And when we say communities, we talk about the patients, we're talking about the caregivers, we're talking about the families, the colleagues at the place of work, we're talking about the employees, we're talking about the doctors and the medical providers. Why? Because if you look at it at this particular point, who is there taking care of the doctors who take care of cancer patients? Because many of those doctors are losing patients almost every other day, as she had been told, I mean, people die. And so we need to have that particular aspect of being able to take care of those doctors as well, talk to them, encourage them to be able to open up and talk about the issues that they're having. So you find that for many times, like for us, we're trying to empower communities with knowledge. Okay, and like what she said, sometimes you're able to look and see some herbs will help, and that's where chemistry comes in. And then there is the functional medicine, which is, when you put them together, it's now called integrative medicine. And that's another area that we've been engaging quite a number of doctors who are practicing integrative medicine. Okay, and globally you'll be able to find that there are those who, the kind of herbs, some of them will help in certain aspects. And the doctors have found that if you're doing functional medicine on its own, there's a success rate. If you're doing herbal medicine on its own, there's a success rate. But when you combine the two and you're now using integrative medicine, you have a very, you've got a higher success rate. Unfortunately, many of our doctors, like the functional doctors, may not know about the herbal side. So they will discourage their patients and say, no, don't do that. Okay, and obviously we've got herbalists who are also out just to make money. So being able to find the right people to go to. Okay, like now, how she went to Kemri, she knew that if I go to Kemri, there is no way that they're going to lead me astray. When you look at the support systems, again, we look at support systems for the doctors, the medical providers, the patients, the caregivers, the employers of cancer patients and survivors, the employees, the whole ecosystem. And that's where we decided, we say, this is where we can be able to make an impact. This is where we can be able to make a difference. Why? Because as she mentioned as well, if you're struggling with cancer for too long and your company decides to use the law, you've got leave on medical grounds for a certain period of time, then they can easily retire you on medical grounds. Now, if you're the breadwinner and you're being retired on medical grounds, all of a sudden you've got all this stress, all this pressure, struggling with this mentally, and you see, cancer is something you have to fight mentally as well. Now you're fighting with all that, and then your livelihood is taken. Your job is taken because they say on medical grounds. For many of those guys, that is actually now, the last nail in the coffin. That is a death sentence right there, because now that means they cannot afford even the medication, they can't afford the treatment, and now you begin to see them deteriorating until the point that they just give up on life.
You know what? The part of integrative medicine and return to work after treatment, I feel like that's where we are going to pick up next time, because unfortunately we have 5 minutes, but there's so much more that we need to unpack in that aspect, And of course we had to start with your journey and just understanding how being a survivor and going through that, then you can sit here and actually speak to the people at home and say, hey, there's this something that we're doing, and if we come together, then something can be done about it. So I really hope I'll get to have you back here so that we can continue from where Tony said. But I'm just looking at our audiences back at home. Someone is listening, the public or a potential partner who is thinking, how can I join this movement? How can I support Arise Against Cancer for just 2 minutes?
Yeah, the way you can support Arise Against Cancer, one, go for screening. That way you have supported us a lot, because you have done exactly what we are advocating for. We want you to save your life. We want to see you alive, not cancerous or anything. Go for screening. Two, for corporate organizations, allow us to please come in and speak to your employees. Allow us to speak to your HR department, because they are the umbrella for your employees. Support us maybe financially by attending our conferences, participating. That will also help us a lot. For the Outsmart Cancer magazine, come in and do your stories there. Support those articles that we have. You would have helped us a lot. Be merciful to your employees who are diagnosed with cancer. Keep them in employment. Don't let them go. because they need you more now more than ever. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you've rushed. We still have a few minutes. Tony,
Okay.
you can chip
Tony
in.
can also do something.
I'll also be able
Yeah.
to say that, given the direction that we took, and we have been able to engage government as well, the Ministry of Health in different aspects and different offices and parastatals, and we've seen a lot of uptake even from the ministry, and we've gotten a lot of support in terms of, getting to see even, heads of parastatals, entities within the ministry coming and saying, we're going to support you because you have actually gone into a niche that most people have not thought about. And the impact that is going to come out of what you are doing is great. So we are grateful that, Arise Against Cancer, based on the direction that we've taken, even the ministry is taking note, and it's saying, we can work together. We are looking at being able to engage with them in terms of looking at programs, looking at when we're doing the conferences. And when you talk about conferences, it's not the conferences where we're just coming and just sitting in a room with specialists. We want to be able to go to communities. We want to be able to travel around the country and talk to people at the very, micro level, and share with them our stories, show them that this is something that we should not be stigmatized about. We're looking at entities like, WHO, World Bank, and we're already in, discussions with them, some insurance companies as well. And the uptake has been interesting, if I may put it that way. Why? Because the direction that we've decided to take, and they realize that if we actually go in this direction and more people become aware, we're giving them the knowledge, the understanding, we may have an impact and be at that place where we're able to tell people that, cancer does not mean that you're no longer capable of doing what you need to do. Cancer does not mean that you're now useless, or if you're seeing someone with cancer that you're useless. There is something that we can be able to do. We can be able to ensure that they heal, but it has to be a community-based program. It cannot be an individual on their own. Yeah.
It has to be a community approach. And just one more thing, there is one forgotten group that is equally very important, because when you have cancer, everybody around you becomes sick. These are the caregivers. For example, in my own space, I had my husband, David. He has walked with me through the journey, and he's still walking with me. Now, if you are not the employee, but you are the caregiver, you have your spouse or your family member is sick, you are an employee somewhere and you're caregiving. Every time you have left a sick person in the house, you don't know what will happen the next minute. So in the office, you cannot work. You cannot focus with your work. How are these people also taken care of? Can they equally be allowed maybe some time off just to rush back and look at their patient? This is a very important group of people who walk the journey with a cancer person or any other critical illness, because it's not just about cancer. It's also about other critical illnesses. How is this group taken care of? Yeah.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the team from Arise Against Cancer for making time to come here and have this conversation.
Thank you.
When we started, we thought, hey, 1 hour,
I know.
Now the time is up, and there's so much to unpack, but we really thank you for taking time, and we also appreciate you at home for taking the time to sit down and follow up on this conversation. And that's why individuals like Nancy and Tony from Arise Against Cancer are here to tell you that there's hope, there are means, and there are ways that you can go about issues to do with our health. We talked about herbal, people at home might know my okay, let me not get personal,
No, it's all right.
But yeah,
we learn a lot from personal stories.
We have those conversations, so you're not alone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for making time. We are hoping to see you next time, same place, same time. My name is Chemtai Kirui. And of course, I've been sitting down with Tony Kisaka, just immediate from me. And on the far left is Nancy Andwati. Both of them are from Arise Against Cancer.
You
can find them online.
Yes.
Right? Arise Against Cancer.
www.ariseagainstcancer.org. Yes.
And you can follow up the conversation from there. If you're joining us late, of course, the conversation will be on YouTube, and you can hear from the beginning until now. That's it. We wish you a good night. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.